Welcome back, everyone, to the Comic Blast podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Grayson. Along with me is the OG of CB, with the dynamic duo, Keenan. Hello, my friend.
It's me, two OGs, the creators, the guys who started it all. Forget those other people on the podcast; they suck. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't even know who they are.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to be talking about what we're going to be talking about today. I'm gonna let Grayson introduce all that good stuff, but it's gonna be a good week.
Yeah. So, for many people who don't know, or many people who do know, doesn't matter. Spider-Man Miles Morales comes out this week on November 12th. As we are recording this, it is November 8th. So we have less than a week away, and I know Keenan is over the moon, maybe through the moon.
As excited as I've been, yes, probably through the moon.
Honestly, my flub is an accurate depiction. And we all know that Keenan and I are huge fans of Spider-Man PS4 and that entire franchise that Insomniac and Marvel have kind of pioneered on PlayStation. So Keenan came up with the idea of kind of doing this small mini-series of smaller episodes to kind of lead us into the hype of Miles Morales. And so this first episode is going to be us just kind of talking about Spider-Man PS4, like, does it still hold up? Like, what the impact it has made on our lives? Like, what this game means to so many, and you know, how it's kind of shaped the legacy leading into Miles Morales and all those intricate things. So, Keenan, why don't you like get us started here? You are known as the biggest Spider-Man PS4 fan on the podcast, possibly the world, but that's a debate for another day. So
definitely not the world. I wish in the world. I want to be known as that guy. By all means, I want to be known as that guy, but definitely not according to Reddit. However, this game, God, I just want to rewind back to 2018 for a second, leading up to the launch of this game, because I didn't know it in PS4 at the time, and I know, Grayson, you got it like day one. You got that special Spider-Man PS4, that PS4 Pro.
Yes, I do.
A little bit jealous of it. Every time when I come over your house, I'm just tempted to take it home, but I have not yet. So I have refrained from doing so. But 2018, man, like ever since that year and that time period, it brings all the right vibes. Like, so this year, I get the same exact feeling that I got from 2018 being excited for the game. Now, I had to wait a little while. I think I got it like a month after launch. But there's just something that's like, in a way, I know the game's 2 years old, but there's some sort of like nostalgic feeling every fall that I get that brings me back to playing that game. When it's fall time, I think of Spider-Man PS4. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about how amazing the game is and how it's impacted me as a person and how it's like one of the very few stories that can bring some sort of emotion out of me. I can get into all, the little nitty-gritty details about it, but it's definitely been it sounds silly to say, but it's definitely been, one of the stories that made an impact on me as a person. So I'll say that to start with.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start off. I get that same kind of nostalgic feeling. Granted, I usually rarely have the time to replay it, but I often just think about it a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I put countless hours just into free roaming and photo mode and whatnot. But I mean, the story is still so vivid in my mind from even only playing it
once, right?
A little, once. I never finished my second playthrough, and I intend to, but it's just, I mean, that fall season comes around and all these other games come out, and so it can kind of sideline you a bit, but it doesn't change the impact. Like, it's so fresh in my mind, because it is only 2 years old, which is both crazy because it feels not that long ago, but also so long ago.
It does feel like a while ago to me.
Yeah, a lot can transpire in 2 years, especially when you're our age. which is another thing that I kind of want to attest to with this game. Is not only is it one of the best Spider-Man stories, but it's one of the best just stories in general that I've ever experienced. And I think that's because, for people who don't know, like, for both of us, Spider-Man is our favorite fictional character, and he's so relatable to us. And I think this version of PS4, like the PS4 Spider-Man, really lines up with that even more because of the age that we are.
Yeah. We're old men.
You and I, or at least the well, we're transitioning. Like, you're 28, correct? Yeah. Okay. So you're 28, I'm 21, but we're both kind of in similar walks of life. Yeah. I would say, like, we're both, we don't have great paying jobs that kind of work us to death. We're both in school or about to leave school. We both have girlfriends, which is kind of a thing, or like have to deal with our relationships and then our friendships. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's very relatable with Peter in that game because he's got a lot on his plate. He's got a job. He's got his family to take care of. He's got his friends to take care of. He's still trying to rekindle this relationship with MJ. Like, he literally gets evicted from his apartment.
Yeah.
It's because he has money issues, and we saw that a lot with Spider-Man 2 specifically, which is also, again, one of our favorite Spider-Man stories. Yep. It's showing that Spider-Man's a real guy. He is a dude who deals with real issues, and we continue to see that in other versions of Spider-Man, and I think most significantly with Spider-Verse is another one where they really made all of the characters feel like real people. They all had trauma, and that would shape their character arcs. Just like, Peter B. Parker is a totally different version of Peter Parker, but he also has very realistic issues. He's in his mid-40s, he's divorced, he's overweight, like, he's cynical, he's down on his luck, he hates life, he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, and it's like, I could think of people that character fits with them, because it's like, Spider-Man was created to be relatable. So whether you have all these, like, different versions, this younger version, this version that's in line with the Insomniac interpretation, or Miles or Gwen, or maybe one that's in his 30s and just getting married and maybe thinking about having kids, or being like Peter B. Parker who's in his 40s. Like, we've talked about there's a Spider-Man for everyone, and I think we love this one so much just because of when it came out at, like, the right time. It was, and I think, kids will grow up and will still love Spider-Man PS4, but, like, it won't be as relevant to them, and probably they will enjoy the Tom Holland version because it's closer to their age. It's one of those things that's like, I enjoy Tom Holland's version and his universe, but, like, I'm not in high school anymore. I was leaving high school when that started. So I am an adult now. I'm a senior in college, and I'm graduating next year. Like, more and more is the PS4 version becoming more relatable to my life.
Yeah, he's a 23-year-old young adult who has his, relationship drama, friendship, issues. It's, trying to keep a healthy relationship between himself and his family, while also bearing the responsibility of being the protector of this massive city. On top of that, you have worlds colliding, where you have somebody that you look up to, specifically in this story with Martin Lee. You have someone that you kind of not necessarily idolize, but you really look up to and you see as just being a good human being. And it turns out that he's actually this really evil dude, and he happens to employ your aunt, and it's just like worlds completely colliding. And that's where the relatability.
And you also have it again with Otto.
Yes, I can't even believe I forgot about that. Like, the relationship between him and Otto, which is hands down the best aspect of this particular story, because you and I, Grayson, we've talked multiple times in previous episodes of the podcast how the strength of Peter Parker is really dependent on the relationships that he has with people.
Yes.
Insomniac probably understands that better than I don't. probably as well as Sam Raimi understood that, I would say. Because in the as we're talking about this game, I'm not gonna nitpick at MCU Spider-Man or anything. I'll say that that's a fun story. It's a fun adaptation right now, and I actually think that adaptation is gonna develop into a more mature Spider-Man that you and I can relate to as kids grow older and watch that Spider-Man. But in this moment, Insomniac just understands Peter Parker. They understand Spider-Man. And they understand that what makes this character click is the relationships that he has or lack thereof relationships or the conflicts between them. And I appreciate that so freaking much because relationships kind of make us who we are. Like the people that we choose to keep and surround us with kind of make us who we are. We take a little bit of each person we decide to have a relationship with or a friendship with. So I appreciate that more than anything. The character's super relatable, like I said. And, you were talking about getting evicted and, having the people you look up to let you down. And the huge thing with him and MJ, where they're kind of in this weird in-between place in their relationship. I'd be like, who hasn't been through that at some point in time if you're a young adult?
Yep.
We've all been there. So Insomniac really nailed, that this character and really understood it. And that's why I have the utmost confidence in them to develop future stories. We're going to eventually see some sort of friendship between him and Harry, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, all in all, Insomniac, I'm just super appreciative of because they just understand what makes this character so relatable to many young adults. And I love that they decided to make their Peter Parker a little bit older and not go after an origin story.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think high school Peter is often the most explored.
Yep.
And even as a kid, I loved stories where Peter Parker was an adult.
Yep.
I actually really love stories where he is getting married to MJ or he's a teacher or something. He's not a photographer at the Daily Bugle in high school or whatever. He's a man. He's learned a lot. And so it's this Spider-Man that's been Spidey for 8 years.
Yeah.
He's got some notches on his belt. And he's a little seasoned, but he's still Spider-Man.
He's in his prime.
He's that refined Spider-Man. Yeah, absolutely. He's in his prime, but also with his stuff going on as Peter, he's a mess. He's still he's still down on his luck. Yeah. And it's just how it is. And you were saying something about how other people letting him down. I think another big thing is that which we see in Spider-Man 2 again. Is how he lets others down because of being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's that's a big part of it. And everybody's been in that position where it's I think they've let somebody down when they didn't intend to.
It's the consequences.
And they kind of have to deal with the Reaper.
Yeah, the consequences of being Spider-Man at times.
Yeah. And sometimes even consequences of being Peter. It's, they take into consideration that everything is kind of surrounds one another. This dual life is, they're tied. And so that's something that we sometimes don't see in other interpretations. But, and I also just think it is such a perfect modern version of Spider-Man. Especially with the introduction of Miles and the way they set up that. And it's a different take on Miles. It's not the same one that we've seen where as soon as Miles comes around, Peter dies.
They're coexisting.
Very grateful for because I really think they kind of have they don't have a father-son relationship, but they definitely have an older brother, younger brother.
It's definitely older brother, younger brother. Obviously, Miles is an only child. His father has passed away in this game. So that's a relationship that they're going to look to build on for future games. And I absolutely love what they're doing with these characters because there's a common misconception between Peter Parker and Miles Morales, especially early on in the creation of Miles Morales. He's still a pretty young character, but a lot of people.
How old is he right at the moment?
2011 is. Oh, you're talking about in the game?
No. How old is?
He's only 15.
Yeah.
He looks a little bit more mature than 15.
I feel like he's at least 16.
I think he's 15 in Spider-Man PS4. He might be 16 in this upcoming game, but. Okay.
He looks like a man.
Yeah, he does.
That's what I'm saying.
He definitely does. But what I do love is that we did get this older version of Spider-Man, and and the truth is we've seen a lot of that younger version of Peter Parker already. I love that we jump straight into his story after he's locked up all of these like major, criminals. And there's history there, and like you kind of have an idea of what happened between like him and Vulture and stuff like that, but you don't know for sure because this is a different take on Spider-Man. But what was I getting at? Okay, so there's a common misconception between like Miles Morales. A lot of people think that Miles Morales is literally just like a reskin of Peter Parker, and it's simply not true. Like Peter Parker growing up as a kid was very different than Miles Morales as a 15, 16-year-old kid.
Oh, yeah.
Peter Parker was the nerd nobody cared about. He was bullied, picked on. He was a nobody. Whereas Miles Morales, he's
an outcast.
Yeah, Miles Morales, pretty cool dude. Like, he's sociable.
Yeah.
In this upcoming game, he's got some swagger to him. So he's growing up.
He's
in
not
a
the most
era.
popular guy ever, but he's definitely like a likable.
He can hold his own.
Yeah.
So there's the difference or the contrast between the two. But we're gonna get to see a youthful Spider-Man now. We're gonna get the best of both worlds. So we're gonna get in the prime Spider-Man, and future sequels of Spider-Man PS4, and that we're also gonna get that younger Spider-Man too. Which I'm really looking forward
one thing
to.
that's cool. It's cool is you get that contrast of like their fighting styles and also the way they like kind of cope with things. I saw a joke. They were like, Peter Parker makes quips and jokes to get through fights. Miles Morales puts in Jaden Smith music.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's true, but it's cool. Like, that teaser, that teaser we saw him like he pops in those like Bluetooth earphones and puts his mask on, and he's like, all right, let's go. Like, and you're like,
exactly.
That's so cool. Whereas Peter would have just been making some like stupid joke, like, and which I love, and that's what I love about Peter, because I also make stupid jokes. But I know a ton of people that are like, I mean, even I can vibe with like, oh yeah, Miles put in some music, like, okay, I'm down with that.
Gonna be dope. So
it's cool that we get these two different Spider people, and they definitely, every Spider-Man is going to have some shared similarities, but that's what we said is like those relatable aspects with every Spider-Man that allows each one to stand on its own and kind of allows you to pick and choose. And there could be 100 different versions of Peter Parker, and none of them are going to be the same.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's a cool thing. I mean, Andrew Garfield is definitely not the same Peter Parker as Tobey Maguire. Tom Holland is not the same as Yuri Lowenthal's performance in the Insomniac game or whatever it may be, and that's like the beauty of it. But I definitely think PS4 has made a huge impact, and I'm assuming Miles Morales will do the exact same thing, which we will kind of get into in the next couple of episodes. So yeah, that's all I got to say on kind of revisiting Spider-Man PS4, other than like gameplay wise, it still holds up. Story wise, still holds up. You haven't played it, go play it. Like,
dude, I was playing the DLC today, just having a blast.
Yeah.
So it definitely still holds up, but there's still room for improvement, which I think Miles Morales is definitely going to kind of polish out some combat things and add to a lot of the mechanics and stuff. There's definitely things you can nitpick in this game if you really want to, such as these little side missions with MJ and having to do missions as Miles Morales. Obviously those aren't the most appealing missions. Some of them just go on a little bit too long. But overall, if you're looking at story and character, I think it's a flawless game, and that's what's most important to me. So yeah, I'm glad we got to take a chance or an opportunity to kind of revisit this game 2 years later, especially with Miles Morales coming out pretty soon. I'm very excited. That's my quote for the week, my motto for the week. I'm so excited.
We know. We all know, trust me. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, this smaller episode of the Comic Blast podcast. Stay tuned if you're listening to this to the day of release, and if it's a couple days later, some of these next episodes are already out. We're doing 2 more episodes kind of leading up to the hype of Miles Morales, so go check those out. I'm going to do all the housekeeping stuff at the end of the episode, so you can follow me at StraightsThere8 on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Keenan at Keenan Creates on the same places. You can follow Comic Blast at comicblast_ on Twitter and Instagram, and you can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/comicblast, which we now have up to 7 patrons, I think now. Correct?
That's correct.
Yes, we have a new patron. So I'm gonna go through the list, and I'll say the last patron. So obviously we have Jess, our sponsor. We have Jake, Caleb, Diego, Sam, Joseph, and now Jacob.
Welcome to the club, Jacob. Right. So happy to have you.
Yeah, man.
If anybody's new and listening.
And I know, Jacob, if you're listening to this, you are a huge Spider-Man fan as well. We were talking about it over DMs.
Oh, heck yeah.
We were talking about that white and red candy cane suit, which is what I call it for the PS5 remaster. I mean, it does look pretty sweet, not going to lie. But it does remind me of a candy cane. But, yes, thank you, Jacob. We really appreciate you being part of the Comic Blast family. And, yeah, if you are interested in joining it as well, you can find us on patreon.com/comicblast. That's going to do it for this one. I feel like I shouldn't say Shazam, but considering Peter Parker does say Shazam in Spider-Man 1, Shazam! I'm doing the hand thing.